I heard.
Who exactly is,
Pardon?
who exactly is library staff Irene over there? Is she
Irene Green,
and then she is the,
library director.
oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Yes.
huh.
Yes, I thought I'd just let the words do the talking for me. Hey, I just figured it out, I'll turn them back on. These were like, there we go. They were punched. There we go.
Can I ask you a door count question?
You can try.
Well, I didn't want to necessarily ask, but, so we have 3 entries, right?
Yes.
So how does that work? What,
Can
is there counting on
Would you go
every
before me
door?
about 3 seconds before? Thank you.
Yeah.
I made an
because
official note in
So
my,
what's going on is like, back in the old days when we just had 2 entries, one
Right.
upstairs and one downstairs,
Right.
we had a door counter on each one, and they just counted one way.
Oh, okay.
So we just took that whole figure,
Yeah.
right? And so, hi, what do you do?
No, just got 1 second.
Huh?
You just got 1 second.
Yeah.
Grab it real quick.
That's how are you? Doing well.
Cold back hot.
Paddle your way here?
Probably. Just have to get in the mood to sit.
Yeah, I went all the way up to Mount Hood on Monday, and it was I was gonna go snowshoeing.
Oh, wow.
Timberline.
wow.
It was nasty
Oh.
out there. It was combination of snow, sleet, and rain, and it was blowing like crazy. I mean, like to the point that
Ew, that's miserable.
I got snowshoeing, but I can't see real well, and so on snow it's even more difficult because there's contrast is really bad, and there was no way I could. But I went with 2 other guys that were going to go downhill, and they decided downhill skiing, and they decided not to even try. I mean, it was amazing.
Miserable.
Maureen was saying that her phone said that there might be up to 5 days of snow.
Yeah, it's supposed to be getting a lot of
Sunday night or Monday or Tuesday is gonna get when it's expected to hit.
Yeah,
The weather models are showing anywhere from
until
1
like a
to
week
30
ago, it was
inches by next
25%
Saturday.
of normal.
By next Saturday.
By a week from this Saturday.
Okay.
So I expect 1 inch to over 2 feet.
Wow.
Lived here long enough, you can't rely on anything.
No.
Mine doesn't say, it just says, while accumulations of snow remain uncertain,
There we go.
you know.
I checked
Confidence
the
is
night
increasing.
before we went. I checked, and it was supposed to be like, no, there, a little bit of wind because it's hard to be up there without any wind, but it was supposed to be basically not snowing.
The only thing I really have to
32 degrees when we got up there.
Oh.
and
So-
plan for is camp.
People were getting, it was a nightmare in the parking lot because everybody was spinning around because with that sleet and the freezing
Oh,
rain.
you like it.
No, it was like, forget it.
My wife got really mad one year. We lived on 800-foot level out on Upper Highland. And it was just raining there and it was snowing here in Round City.
Well, that's happened a few times, and I remember
Yeah.
it was not snowing in Oregon City, and by the time I got to the top of 10 o'clock hill, there was like 8 inches of snow.
Oh, yeah, well, that would have been reasonable.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the
I
other
live
way
just
around.
below 10 o'clock church, so I'm at about 700 and something feet, I
Yeah.
think.
Mhm.
So,
I'm at 550 and that.
yeah, but there have been times when we didn't have
It
snow
makes
in
a big
Oregon City
difference.
did.
Because you're coming off of,
Yeah.
So,
Redland and it's like, I don't know, it's like 60 or 70 feet down there.
So I just loved it, getting up in the morning to go to work and it's just beautiful out and then I drive top 10 o'clock hill and just
blanket.
blanket.
Uh-huh.
10 o'clock.
I taught, forever at the college, right? And it would just be so disappointing to come off the hill there and then, down past the school, Beaver Creek School, everything. By the time you got to the high school,
Yep.
My Yeah, it was definitely got some banana belt
Snow at all.
in Beaver Creek though.
Well, so
When
you
it would get
survived
snow in
the-
Portland and we would, up there would be like
The festivities
36
for
to
the,
40 degrees without,
Yeah.
we didn't have these winds from the gorge and
Yeah.
stuff. You had to keep it cold.
gained 5 pounds.
Yeah, the whole
but
weather
not
thing is
survived.
so unpredictable.
Only got 11
We have to
and a half
remember that
months
they
to
can
get
only
rid of it.
project, they can't make the weather.
That's right. Oh, I got a doctor's
They
appointment.
do their
They'll yell
best
at me
with
if
the
I don't get
science
rid of it
that
by next
they
month.
can
Oh,
access
okay.
and
We do
understand,
have,
but
we have the mountains and, I mean, we have things that
That
really make
wellness
it
check,
very.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like little microclimates and all sorts of little things around here that
Yeah.
make it difficult to,
Canby's the place that
Forecast.
has the little banana belt.
yeah.
You know, my step-grandchildren lived down there when they were younger, and they would be so mad when they listened to the radio. This was before all the, computerized stuff, and Oregon City closed, Estacada
Oh,
closed.
yeah, right.
Canby
Schools.
not closed, they don't even have
Right,
a
yeah.
flake on the ground,
Well, there's that warm tongue that comes up like Silverton, Malala, Colton, Beaver Creek, Oregon City, Canby, even up into Elk Grove and Milwaukee a little bit. They call it the dome. But everyone around there gets snow except in that area can often not.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's prudent to get prepared, not panic, but
Right.
prepared, Well, I have,
You mean go to the liquor store?
yeah, that too.
Exactly. You got it.
Top of my list, wine. This one's gonna be shut in with 3 kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta make sure you got your wine. I gotta head to the grocery outlet.
Yeah.
What kind of idea what this means?
Well, I have canned cat, I need to get canned cat food because my cat, he has dry food all the time, but he gets canned twice a day.
Probably not.
He doesn't get one of his little servings, 2 teaspoons of servings. He's walking around hollow-eyed and pretending like he's actually facing certain starvation,
I saw this thing on Facebook the other day, and it was
There are lots of last happening.
photo, but it
I guess that's
had been
Marines.
modified. The
Marines
cat
last
looked like he was really like
things.
snob.
Oh,
And that's
that S on the end confused me.
Yeah, and I've only been fed 26
last
times
happening.
today. So my daughter has a
Takes
cat
a little
named
bit of
Cat,
rereading
like
sometimes to
crazy
figure it out.
with food. I thought it was only dogs, but cats are, it was like.
No, he's just so spoiled and he whines and complains and it's just not to his liking, he tries to bury it,
Very finicky.
Oh, he
But
is,
demanding.
he is totally way more finicky now. I had to put my dog down here back in October or so because he was extremely ill and we'd had him for like 12 years. So the cat grew up with the dog, right? And always like just looking a little bit over his shoulder, make sure the dog doesn't eat his food. But now, no dog.
Jeez, I don't even know how to function. Okay, hold on. My boss interrupted while I was trying to get this going. And what's it doing? Open, okay. So sorry. Run. It's your boss, what are you gonna say?
I'm tired. I hope we don't go on and on tonight.
We've got a pretty full agenda.
Great attitude tonight. Okay.
So are you planning to explain the door count thing in the meeting?
Yes, I can explain some of it.
I mean, I don't,
You can ask your question during the meeting, that would be fine.
I didn't wanna add fuel to Canby's,
Oh, there they are.
There we
We
go.
have to not speak about them meanly, because we.
Well, I'm not on the
are
list.
above
I'm
that.
not on the list either, so I could go home. I'm
Hold
not
on,
here.
no,
Larry's on the list.
no. I can add you right now. I can never figure out why it doesn't do this permanently. Because
Well, we're not a permanent group.
yeah,
Katie is
there's somebody
supposed
else,
to take care
there's
of.
other people that meet in here besides us, like right after us.
All right, and Ken? Okay. All right, you should be on there now. But it may take a minute or two, so go up.
I take it this is not 5G.
However, I'm impressed
Oh, I
that
made it.
that you know that. All right, are we ready?
Is Carrie out? Tonight?
Oh, Carrie. Let's go make sure the door's open.
What's her other name, Susan?
Yeah,
She's not.
Suzanne. There's a story there.
Okay.
Hello? Ah.
Hi, how are you? Good.
Short, you feel not welcome. I said, did you feel not welcome though?
Yeah,
I know.
Oh my gosh, I'm not that late.
We had one
Got on a
reservation.
train and I couldn't get up the hill, so.
Really? How are you?
Good to see you.
Usually we are so much more. Which is a lie, but.
Dave.
All right.
Where's
Oh,
the
we
agenda's
did
loaded, but I
interview him.
can't.
If you click
Oh,
on that.
there it is. Okay.
Is everybody logged in?
Yeah.
I'm signing in right now, I think.
Yeah, Carrie needs a minute.
Sign in.
Oh, except she's not on the list.
Not on the
Really?
list.
You're not on the
Sign
list either?
I pushed the button on, but.
Put your name first.
Ah,
Then.
Suzanne not here tonight?
Yep, there's a
I'm used to
story
these
there.
primitive
Okay.
systems.
Okay, you should be showing up any second.
Okay.
Like, you finally bought an electric typewriter?
I still use a portable manual.
There I am.
Yay.
Well, it says agenda.
Are we ready?
Did you raise your gavel?
Not yet, I'm gonna make sure. You ready? Okay. The Oregon City Library Board meeting will come to order at 5:05 PM. In attendance are Ken Hall, Larry Osborne, Cynthia Andrews, Scott Edwards, Nick Berkman, and Carrie Linder, as well as library staff Maureen Cole and Denise Butcher. Our first item is approval of the minutes from last month. You should have received those via email last week. Are there any corrections or additions? Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Minutes are approved. The next item is public comments. I don't see any. So we will move on to the next item, board member update from our library director.
Right, so we are adding an item to the agenda this evening, and it's under board member update, great title. So yesterday I was contacted by Suzanne Jefferson, who had the very sad and bad news that she has to resign because she has a new job and she can't make it to the meetings because of the new job. So she thought she could because she's going to be able to work from home eventually. I mean, she knew this kind of when she got reappointed, but she's not going to be able to work from home for like months and months. So she's going to miss too many meetings. So she had to resign and like effective immediately. So she feels really bad about that. She says she's sorry. Thank you for letting her serve, da da da. So we were left with a position open. And as you will recall, she was in the out-of-city position, which we had a really hard time filling previously when DA Hildebrand stepped away from that, and Suzanne had stepped in for a few months and then got reappointed. But as I recalled that you had interviewed another candidate for that position, and so I got in touch with David Goldberg, who I believe him when he says he's still interested in this position. So, David, do you just want to come up front and reintroduce yourself and say hi? And
Hello again, I think I recognize every face here. Yeah. So it was quite a surprise to get this strange email with a woman on bended knees. Saw this person. I'm glad it's worked out.
yeah. So, yeah, David was kind enough to come meet me after the interview process, because remember, I was out for a funeral and other things going on, and I just thought that was also very, very nice of you to do. And I was like, well, this is a nice person. I heard really good things about him. I'm sure that the board would love to have him step into this empty position. So, it is my recommendation that you give that about 10 seconds of thought and move that, we ask the mayor to approve the appointment of David Goldberg into the out-of-city position recently vacated by Suzanne Jefferson.
So move.
Second?
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. All right.
Great.
you.
And then David was available to sit with us tonight. I don't think it's quite appropriate that you come to the dais, but he does have the documents that, you know, we always do like a third copy, just in case somebody shows up and like, thank God you're here. Okay, thank you so much,
Welcome.
David. Yeah. Good.
All right.
I just don't hope I hope we just don't bore him so much he leaves.
Well, you know, maybe that was Suzanne's real reason. Yeah, we'll find out.
All right, the next item, we're going to skip.
Well, I just wanted to, very briefly, under the introduction of the new library director, Greg Williams, I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that Greg was selected as our candidate, and he and I have already started doing the transfer of information, the brain dump. He did attend last night's city commission meeting where Scott gave his update, which we'll talk about later, but at that meeting, because he was there, he was able to be introduced to all the city commissioners, which was great just to kind of get that, you know, done ahead of time and meet a bunch of the department heads too. So it's great that he's willing to spend time like so quickly. And he really wanted to be here tonight and meet all of you. And he apologizes for not being able to, but one of his current responsibilities, a meeting somewhat like this, got moved till tonight, so he just couldn't avoid it. He felt like he had to, you know, on his way out, he doesn't want to burn bridges and all that, so, which is very professional and what we expect from somebody, right? So anyway, he sends his greetings and can't wait to work with you, and just want to let you know, I feel like you're in really good hands.
I had a chance to speak with him last night. I was just going to say the same thing. I think we're going to be in good hands.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll move on to item 5, my favorite part, the library director's report.
Well, the actual report is pretty brief this month. You know, I've got a little update in there about the building. We did receive some signs that we've been waiting for, including the historic designation sign, which looks really nice on the front of the building, I think. And then some other signage. And signage is kind of an ongoing thing. You know, you're always kind of tweaking it just a little bit to get it right, or you add a collection or whatever. And yeah, so we really love the company we work with. And then, you know, the new director, that's like really the big news. Coming up, the big news with the event is February is the month for the One City, One Book that Gina's been working on for months. And February kicks off with a book giveaway, which is supported by the Friends and the Foundation. And the foundation is paying for the author visit, which is at the end of the month, February 27th. And then there's a few programs in between, specifically in alignment with themes or topics that are in the book. So the book is The Girl Who Fell from the Sky by Heidi Duro, and it should be really, really good. So it's also a nice opportunity for a partnership with Clackamas Community College, at least a group from there. And she hopes to make this an annual thing. So I hope you're able to attend one or more of the programs. And then statistics-wise, I did include statistics from October, November, and December, which I had, you know, I was gone, and then I was like messing with them and all that stuff. They are gonna look much the same, except I did want to mention in November, like, if you don't capture, at least I didn't discover a way, because I didn't really look, a way, like, you know, I give you a count of how many followers we have on Facebook and all those. Well, if it's already after, like, November, You know, I mean, it was already updated to December by the time I looked at the number. There's no way for me to go back and see where we were like on November. So that's blank on November statistics. So that's what's going on with that section. And then as far as the door count, so what happened is, one of the other libraries, you know, we compile some statistics and they started asking me about the door count seemed really high. And we started looking into it, and we used to have one-way door counts only. So you could just like use that entire number. And we had all assumed that that's what we still had. Now we had an extra door, but we assumed that it was still one way, not two-way. Well, so it looks like 2 of the doors are two-way and 1 of the doors is one-way. But then when I go back and look at like what, you know, splitting one of those, you know, 2 of those numbers in half and then adding it all together, it still doesn't look right. So I made an executive decision, and as retired people will do, that I'm passing this along to Greg. And he is really good at statistics, and he is really good at technology, and I think they will be able to figure it out. And in the meantime, I just added the numbers as what I've always been doing, so that at least we have like a record of comparing ourselves to ourselves. You know what I mean? So maybe it's like too high of a number, but at least like I know that this month compares to like last month, and then this year, last year. It's the same number that I'm looking at, the same, you know, compilation of figures, right? Yep. So that's what's going on. We have to kind of figure out like, okay, what really should the real figure be, and then go back a few, you know, as far as we can and figure it out. I'm not sure we're going to be able to go back 3 years and figure that out since we first started in the building, because some of that information might be able to be retrieved, but I haven't been tracking like every single little, you know, I've just been getting the big number. So, you know, maybe Greg can do magic, and I am so excited to have him do his magic, but for now you are stuck with what I'm presenting to you, and I hope it's okay. And that's my statistics story. Does that answer your question, Nick?
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, we look really good. We made like so much money in December. Actually, yeah, for half-off fines. But I mean, even compared to this time last year, we made like over $3,000 more. It's October, November. No, $2,000 more. I'm sorry, because it was $78.91 this year, and last year at this time it was $57.96. So, yeah, I mean that's a lot more money. And I don't know exactly why that would be, but.
Are people interested in paying off their fines?
Yeah.
I sort of looked at year to year just to see, because I only looked at December's because I just assumed that I wanted to focus sort of on year to year, and all of our numbers are up from what I can tell, at least generalizing, I mean, all the significant numbers and that was really encouraging. And that it wasn't like a small amount, it was like more like 8 to 10%.
Yeah, I mean, our circulation looks really good. I mean, we are hopping. Even if our door count is off, we are busy there. So.
Any more comments on the library director's report or questions?
Oh, and it's my last month. Thank you guys. Bye.
So.
Okay, in the minutes that were from the Canby board meeting, those very snarky minutes.
Yeah.
It was saying that, you know, we're out of proportion and that has not been the case as we've looked at the data. So how did that come out?
And I don't know how they look at the same information that I look at, as far as I know. And I'm not sure that is the reflection on the collection that they think it is. Because according to Greg, who you will hear from in the future, who used to run Link, and so is very, very familiar with the formulas that get set up to send books out to fill requests, hold requests. It isn't a direct one-to-one relationship with like who has the book and who needs the book, et cetera. It has a lot to do with couriers and routes and what's easiest. So, you know, if a library is closer to another library, and maybe that makes sense, and I don't think that's it, because I know it goes to a central sort every time. He could explain it a lot better, but that ratio of like what we're loaning and what we're borrowing is not the direct reflection on our collection that it sounds like. And he can explain that better to you, but that's what I've picked up so far. So I think overall, much of what they are interpreting from our statistics is, I would disagree with.
I think the other thing too is that, I mean, we've watched that number really closely, and it's been decreasing over time.
It's
and
improving.
I would imagine that it's going to continue. I mean, I think some of it's still recovery from with the new building and that type of thing. And then I was going to make a wise.
But, you know, let's not be
I can't-
recorded making too snarky of comments, because we don't want to go down that path.
The other thing is that you have to look at, I mean, I was interested in some other statistics besides just taking one number. And what I'm referring to is that, you know, there's other measures that might have indication about this. I mean, we may have our city might be requesting more books because we have more readers that are, you know, I think there's other statistics that we could use to compare that would give us a better feel for it.
Well, we do have twice as many registered users in Oregon City. And the thing is that they may use the Canby Library. That's hard to know, because they may have registered with us originally as their home library, for instance. You know what I mean?
Right.
On the other hand, it's like typically like where you pick things up, holds and stuff, that tends to be your home library.
Right.
So, you know, there's lots of ways that you can interpret pieces of information, because of course there's the information that goes into creating those statistics, right? As we all know, from statistics can be, you know, moved around to say what you want them to say, you know, but I think our collections certainly need to be bigger, and they are growing slowly over time. But we also get a lot of use, so some of them are coming out at the same time as some of them are coming in, you know, because they get manhandled, like, and a lot of usage. So that's great. So, you know, that still needs to grow, but it's growing, and I think we're in pretty good shape.
All right, let's move on. You're done with the reports?
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to item 6, review of behavior policy.
All righty. So I know you guys have looked at this a lot. But, you know, the policies are there to support staff and their functions as they work through the day. And, you know, not every time we have an incident, but lots of times when something comes up, we'll look towards the behavior policy to help guide us. And then when we don't find the guidance that we really need or whatever, then it's like, okay, this needs to change just a little bit, you know, and I think that's just going to keep happening as we get more experienced in dealing with issues that require exclusions or something like that. So don't be surprised if this doesn't just come back to you in a couple more months, you know, from further discussion by staff. I want you to know that I have run this by the attorney, and he's absolutely fine with the changes that I'm requesting. So first of all, we have a document called the behavior rules, and we call it behavior policy like all the time. So I just wanted to change that so that like people know that we're talking about the same thing when we say behavior policy. And then the next change would be in the second paragraph, and I wanted to add a sentence that says, engaging in more than one of the behaviors listed in rules 1 through 16 or directing behavior towards a child under 18 may be cause for immediate exclusion. And this is there because we specifically had something happen that was directed towards a teenager that was very, very upsetting. And at the time, this led us to the person left for the day, but there was no exclusion. And upon further reflection, we're like, yeah, that person needs to be asked to stay away for at least a week. Fortunately, they haven't been back, but, and we wrote up the exclusion, but it was after a lot of conversation. And then the next change that would have gone along with that event that happened is that rule number 1 currently includes a segment that says, behaviors that disturb, blah, 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 but not limited to harassment as defined in ORS 166.065, conduct that involves the use of abusive or threatening language or gestures, and then goes on to some other things. Unreasonable noise, loud or boisterous physical behavior. When you look up the definition of ORS 166.065, which I believe I sent you part of the text, the appropriate text, it's very much like not in alignment with something that is unreasonable noise or boisterous physical behavior. It's really much like you are threatening somebody. And basically, which is what it says in the next phrase, conduct that involves the use of abusive or threatening language or gestures. It's basically along those lines. And it's like, that is, in our minds, more severe than being boisterous in the library. I mean, it's just like not even on the same plane as being boisterous in the library. And it is something that could potentially require an exclusion. In this case, it would have, because it was directed at a teenager and it included sexual language. And it was very threatening. And so I just felt like this didn't give us the guidance we needed, and I'm proposing that, we make the change in chapter 2, we remove this language from number 1, and then we add that language down under like a new number 18, under the section that says persons who violate rules 17 through 22 will be immediately excluded. And it doesn't mean we absolutely have to, but it gives us that, ability to. And I mean, if we want to be consistent, which we do, we probably would, but I mean, it can be as short as a week, but it is like, you don't act like that in the library and you don't come back tomorrow. You have to go home and think about it for a while, or wherever you go. So that is, after lots of discussion with the staff, Denise and I back and forth, staff is good with this. Our attorney is good with this. That is the recommendation I made to change our behavioral rules, now policy, hopefully, and effective immediately. Any questions?
I have a question. So 17 through 22, now that you explained it, I mean, I just looked at the changes.
Yeah.
So is 17 and 22 important enough that we should move those in the front?
Oh, well,
I mean,
I don't know,
understand.
yeah, I know what you're saying. It's kind of like, we start from less severe to severe,
Yeah,
is how this is set up.
yeah.
We're eternal optimists at the library.
I mean, it's fine. I was trying, when it was split out and moved down to 18, I didn't realize that, I didn't read that part that said 17 to 22, and I was like, that seems really important.
Well, it does.
Maybe it should
So
be at the top.
the description of the stuff through 17 or 22, I try to put in bold so that it gets people's attention.
Right.
But, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's fine. I was just...
Any other comments, questions? Is there a motion?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it 17 to 22 or 23?
Oh, 23, I'm sorry. Yes, and so I will make that change. Thank you very much. See, we need copy editors all the time. Good catch, David. You're hired.
So do you want a motion to just approve this?
Yeah, I would like a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move we approve with the change in numbering.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Second. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All the opposed, say no. All right, the board has approved the revised behavior policy. And now we'll move on to the next item, the annual review of library board bylaws.
Just a comment on this, make sure we have the date that it was adopted and date effective on the document,
Yep.
please.
Sure, we can update that.
Yeah.
It's not a content thing, it's just a protocol.
Should be done with all of the policies.
Yeah.
Especially if somebody's got the whole copy.
So I believe I also sent you out the figures for the current population, right?
Yes.
So, which the in-city is 35,000 something, and then the out-of-city is 24. So,
Almost 25, yeah.
yeah, almost 25. So the way I do math, and you know, there's a reason I'm a librarian. It looks like what would be kind of the perfect split would be 4 in-city, 3 out-of-city,
That's correct.
right? I mean, at this point in time, and I don't know that the out-of-city is going to go down. You know, I would be surprised if that's, because it's kind of steadily grown. So, I mean, that's the only, I mean, that doesn't have to be like, I just think that's important to remember, especially because at the county level, when we go to our meetings, our LDAC meetings, the representation for unincorporated areas, it's really, really important to a lot of people in the room.
Right.
You know, that it be even. And that would be one change that we could make that says we've really addressed this. You would kind of lose that at large, but I mean, what's the purpose of the at large, do you think?
Flexibility, maybe, or.
Yeah, but
I mean, the at-large, the way I was interpreting it was just somebody that's kind of looking across both of those areas. So that, but.
Oh, okay. That's a good
But you're
point.
right in terms of the numbers, because I ran through it, I did all the calculations.
good, I'm glad our math is good.
Yeah, it's real, I mean, if there's 7 members, it's really, like, it's right on the, right on 4,
Right.
4 and 3.
Yep.
And then I tried to,
Actually, I think it's 2.8, so we need to get a 0.2 of a person somewhere.
well, if we had the at-large, then we need 3.5 and 2.5, but I didn't know how that would work.
I think that would
But I
be
was
tough.
trying to figure it out, but I ran out of time, so I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Close enough, and I'm in the close enough club, so, you know. 3, round it up to 3. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a big enough deal to like make an actual change, because this actually is, you know, codified and has to go through a big process for that one change, you know?
Well, could we informally use the at-large position to even up whichever direction it goes in the future? Like if everybody moves out of the city, could we then ad hoc specify, well, we're gonna, for the at-large position, this time we will get somebody who is out of the city?
You know, I think you could informally try for that. I think one of the problems has been with out of city is just even recruiting people from out of the city. You know, that's,
understand that,
yeah, so I mean, that's a whole different problem. But I think you could probably like add, you know, and I could run this by Katie and the city recorder and our attorney if we needed to, and just say, I think you probably could say each year, like this year, this is the population. It would be our preference to get an out-of-city person in this position this year, you know?
Yeah, I like that. Rather
And
than
then, I mean,
changing.
it is a 4-year cycle, but you could keep looking at it. So that's the thing. It's like for, you know, it would be a person for 4 years in that position.
One thing that I thought with, in terms of the at-large is, and sort of justifying it in my mind, was the fact that Oregon City has more skin in the game because of the building, and we're getting some financial support through the city, and we're getting a lot of services through the city.
We are.
And so when I looked at it from that standpoint, the at-large for me kind of made sense because it's for the not to minimize or reduce the you know, the focus on the out of city, but it, from a sort of responsibility standpoint, it made sense to me. And I mean, I think as long as we're as a group focused on the fact that we want to improve services to out of city
as much as we
Well,
can.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's
I mean,
clearly in our strategic plan.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought what we have now is, I mean, I could justify it
Yeah.
through that concept. And the thing is, like I said, we have more I mean, the in-city has more responsibility. So,
It's a very good point.
and the recruitment thing, like you were saying.
I would, having lived where I used to live in Beaver Creek, our kids went to Malala High School. But we're in the Oregon system, you know, in the district for the library for Oregon City. They went to Malala. If you're commuting to Malala to pick up your kids or something like that, Malala has a library. You might get a card at Malala, and that could be the same for Canby or, you know, other places where people find it easier to go if you're on the edge.
Certainly, yeah.
To go to these other places to do their library
Right.
work. So,
Well, I'm certain that's how it works for a lot of people. They make that decision. But in the funding mechanism, you know, geographically, they're assigned to one service area or another. I mean, this is the entire Canby argument. And that is a topic that deserves a lot of discussion and will happen in the big task force conversations, because of course, how those service areas are divided up should be, there should be very good criteria for it. It should be very transparent, and everybody should know what those decisions are based on, which is not currently how it is. It was made a long time ago, 15 years ago. It was not well documented, and we don't really know how it was decided. So that's all up for great discussion, I think. But as far as what representation, you know, we have on this board, what's so interesting is that this has existed for a very long time, that unincorporated people have been represented on this board. So, I mean, I think we have served some portion of unincorporated for a very long time. And, I mean, we can, you know, maybe in light of the fact that there are going to be those conversations, you leave it this way for now for sure, and then you just play with it annually as you need to, or adjust, or even wait, see what happens with the big task force conversations.
So we don't, if I can summarize the thought, right now, no one feels that a change is necessary. Is that correct?
That's my feeling.
Yeah, it doesn't
I'll
seem
agree.
like it. Yeah.
And just because we review them annually at this meeting doesn't mean we couldn't change them if some major change decision comes out of that LDAC meeting, right?
Absolutely, anytime
Okay.
you could look at them. This is just to be like, you know, I put it on that list of things that you do annually, just to be sure that things are regularly reviewed and people like know that they have bylaws and there's like this legal standing for this board and all that, just, you know. That's the only reason. And the only reason I even really wanted to emphasize it this year is so that we have that awareness of the population split and making sure we feel like we're doing our part to represent unincorporated.
So, given that, are we
Yeah.
going to talk about the bylaws in more detail?
We totally can.
I have a couple recommendations.
Sure.
On line item on 5 on page 1 down
Yep.
at the bottom.
Yep.
It says, I can't really read it, but it's
Represent the interests of the library users of the city?
of the city.
Yeah,
We should
so right
say
there.
of the Oregon City Library District service area, or whatever you want to say there, but
Yep.
I think that would would emphasize what we're trying to do. And then on the next item, I think it's the same thing.
By city residents.
Yes.
Yep. Good. You can tell I haven't looked at it in a while. Okay.
So there's that. What else do I have? Oh, gosh. Let's see here.
Oh, I'm supposed to, I'm sorry, file a member's resignation with the chairperson as soon as possible.
There you
So
go.
I'll send you that email, Scott.
Okay.
Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
I'm trying to see what I was trying to make here, so. Carrie? What's that one? Can you? 6 under page 3?
Meetings,
I think it's, under meetings maybe.
Okay.
What was I trying to do?
Formal agenda items must be submitted to the staff
Days.
Oh,
representative.
yeah, the days. Is 5 days enough? I thought you had to post it on,
So you can yell at me if you want, but here's what I've been doing. You wouldn't do that to a person who's retiring, I'm sure. So the city commissioners would like
thank you.
agendas out and posted a week before a meeting. And I think that is a great goal. However, because we always include statistics with what we do, those statistics are rarely ready by that far in advance, especially depending like this week or this month. The first fell on a Wednesday. It was just a week ago. I can't get statistics even in my hands by a couple days later. So I've been doing my very best to post an agenda by the Friday before the Wednesday, and none of you has ever complained. Bless you. And then this time, I even had to revise the agenda. And I could start posting an agenda earlier and then always follow up with a revised agenda. That's what it would require because that's just the way the statistics come in. They take a while to gather for the previous month from people. So,
When I looked at I don't know how important this is, but since I knew the goal was to have it a week in advance.
yeah,
It's doesn't compute.
no.
So I thought maybe it should be 10 days or something like that, or this number.
Well, since I'm usually only getting it out 5 days, no more than 5 days in advance anyway, if somebody would contact me and want something on the agenda. It doesn't give us much time for running it by the chairperson or
Absolutely.
anything, but that's always been very, very tight because of having the meeting on the second Wednesday of the month.
So would it make sense to change this 5 days to 10 days?
I'm fine with whatever. I'm leaving, okay.
That's important.
It is, isn't it?
We're reminded
Just
again.
That was my last comment on the bylaws.
I should just be talking.
So,
Well, do you guys want to change that so that it says formal agenda items must be submitted to the staff representative 10 working days prior to the meeting date?
Under the circumstances, it doesn't seem to make any difference. Isn't that the essence of what you just said?
Yeah, it's and I would just raise one other point is there could be agenda items that come up from outside.
Sure.
That they could look at this and they'll go, well, I'm within 5 days or whatever, But I feel like we're flexible enough to roll with that and add as appropriate, I
would
think it's
agree,
okay.
yeah.
I think 5 days is okay.
Okay.
I agree.
so were there any other comments on the bylaws?
Nick, are you sure you don't have any other edits that I just didn't shut you down by telling
No,
you
didn't.
once
I feel
again I'm
really bad
retiring?
then,
And I'm so sorry for that.
If we're gonna get picky, number 3, item 1, there should be a comma after library director. Sorry, you asked.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. That's horrible.
I mentioned that last year.
Did you?
Yeah, I
And I
did.
completely ignored you.
So reading the bylaws, it sounds like we need a motion.
We do. We need a motion to recommend to the city commission that we would change of the city to users of the library
On
district.
those 2 items.
On the 5 and 6.
The city commission will have to approve that. So
Yep.
is there a motion to recommend
to approve.
that? Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Oh,
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. All right, the board has
Okay.
moved to send the recommendation to the city commission.
At least they tell us really clearly how they want us to deal with that and
Yes.
changes, right?
All right, we will move on to item 8, which are elections. So tonight we elect a chair and a vice chair. These positions are a one-year term. The position of chairperson presides over the library board meetings and is responsible for identification of subcommittees, seeing that the board vacancies are filled, and overseeing the business of the board. The vice chair assumes the responsibilities of the chair in the absence of the chair. Per our bylaws, the elections are by nomination and then a voice vote process. So we will start with the position of chairperson. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate you, Scott.
Yeah, Scott Edwards,
You did such a fine job tonight of filling that open position. I'm so impressed that there's no doubt in my mind.
Are there any further nominations? If not, nominations are closed. All those in favor of Scott Edwards to serve as chairperson, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Scott Edwards is elected as the chairperson of the Oregon City Library Board for 2020. Congratulations, Scott.
That was good.
Nominations for the position of vice chair are now in order. Do we have any nominations?
Who wants to do it?
It's not
Everybody looks
rough.
down.
Yeah.
I don't plan on being on vacation. Probably won't have
Taking
to.
a vacation. And the current vice chair is our current.
Larry.
Larry.
Yeah, I'll do it again if necessary.
thank you, Larry.
I nominate Larry.
I second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? If not, nominations are closed. All those in favor of Larry Osborne to serve as vice chair, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Larry Osborne is elected as the vice chair of the Oregon City Library Board for 2020. Congratulations.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to the next item. Legislation regarding definition of public library in Oregon.
I can't remember if I mentioned this to you before, but the state library had proposed legislation which further defined what a public library is. And so that actually got enacted, and I just wanted you to be aware of it. It is, the state library shall establish minimum conditions that a public library must meet. And that includes financial support from public funds, regularly scheduled open hours, and then also it allows very small libraries, service populations of 2,000 or fewer residents, to be exempt from this, so that it doesn't really exclude areas that can't be open regularly scheduled hours. I'm not quite sure what the point is if you can't be open regularly scheduled hours. But there's a few libraries in this state that were wanting, state library dollars for like ready to read and stuff, and they were quasi-libraries. And so they weren't really publicly funded. And so the state library, as my understanding, felt that it was important to further define this for clarification and let libraries know that there are expectations of minimum standards, which is kind of what this also is saying. So it's just a informational thing. I mean, we are way above and beyond minimum standards, so you don't have to worry about our library.
All right. Any comments? All right, we'll move on to item 10, review of the annual library board report to city commissioners.
So it happened.
Yep.
Scott did a great job.
Oh,
Did you?
thank you.
I mean,
The mayor and the commissioners were there, and I just went over, I did a little background and briefing on the library board itself, and then went over the items that Mo had sent out to all of us. And they're happy to hear it. Not really many questions, although there was one involving, from the mayor involving Canby.
Oh, yeah, he brought it up because he works down in Canby, you know? And so he was quite aware of what's going on, which was interesting. But Scott presented them with like, you know, the positions that we have and then the in-city, out-of-city population, just to remind them that we are not just a city operation,
Right. Good.
which was, I think, probably good.
And then also the groups we work, the neighborhood associations, when we worked with them, and also the Friends and the Foundation
Yep,
and LDAC.
all that
So,
liaison stuff. Yeah. So it was good. He did a great job.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 11, communications. Nick, do you have an update from the Library District Advisory Committee?
Yes, we do. The Library District Advisory Committee is scheduled to meet on the 27th, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen because on the 24th, there is a Library District Task Force meeting. It'll be the first meeting of the task force.
This is the big
task force.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and that's open to, I mean, it's open to anyone that's interested. So it's at 1:30, and I can't remember where it is. Look, I mean, it's going to be on
Right
the
at the
red
county
soils,
somewhere,
but
yeah.
somebody place up there. But, so that's the next step, basically. And they have a tentative scheduled plan, and it goes out about a year and a half to get it totally completed. That's it.
That's it. Okay, and that's the 24th, and is this up here?
Yeah, red soils.
What do you know what day of the week that is?
It's a Friday.
It's a Friday.
Okay.
And then, as Nick mentioned, the 27th is supposed to be a regular LDAC meeting in the evening. I don't really know what's on the agenda to talk about, but
I think it was anticipated that the other meeting would occur earlier. That's what I'm thinking.
oh, okay, I see. So you think that because of
I'm-
that, it
I'm
might
expecting
be
it to be
moved
canceled.
a little bit, because it's a lot of the same, characters.
I have a meeting on the 24th, but I'm trying to find a replacement for me.
Okay. And Tony will unfortunately be out of town,
Oh,
so it'll be us. But it's mostly history at this point, so.
Well, that's what I need.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you need, and probably he could use it too, but anyway.
Okay, Cynthia, do you have an update from the Library Foundation?
We did not meet in December.
Okay.
We will be meeting, at our November meeting, we set up, a planning session, a half-day Saturday planning session, which is the 25th of January, and all the board members will be there, and we will be looking at how to sustain the efforts around the Dolly Parton project, and what is the role of the foundation as the Dolly Parton project unfolds itself and grows, and then is there life after Dolly Parton? So, what will be the next focus or set of foci for the foundation, and what does that mean in terms of money and staff time and that sort of thing. So what we're particularly looking at and interested in getting resolved at that meeting is a plan for the longevity of the Dolly Parton project and reducing the foundation's responsibility for that by perhaps having a subcommittee of people that work on that more directly. We want to make sure that we don't overload the library staff, but how do we oversee all of the details that the Dolly Parton project requires without burdening either the foundation, which is not really its operational role, or the library staff. So that will take some discussion.
Ken, do you have an update from the Friends of the Library?
Okay, the Friends didn't have a meeting in December, but they had a nice meeting today. They're doing very well at the new location. They, of course, have problems of space, and they talk about that. I was in the other day, and it didn't look very crowded to me, but there was they had lots of books. They made a commitment to the summer concert funding to have the summer concert
people, up to $2,500. And they're doing, pretty well in that respect. They made a lot of money, or a lot higher than normal in, after Christmas. They've, let's see, yeah, they did very well Black Friday, they said. And they had their membership drive luncheon, and they felt they did very well there. And they're pretty happy, it seems to me. They're doing quite well. They got money in the bank, and they like to give it to good projects, such as Dolly Parton and what was that other?
So they're also, both the foundation and the Friends are supporting the One City, One Book
Yes.
project. The foundation is paying for the author to come, which is a $5,000 fee. And the Friends are, they supplied funds so that we could buy copies of the books to give away, because that's kind of one of those things that gets done in these community-wide reads. And I think the foundation might have committed a little bit to that too. Yeah. So they're both being extremely generous, and the Friends have really come through. This commitment they made today was for to help support the summer concert series that we have in conjunction with the summer reading programs, which have been very, very successful and directed at kids, even though they really end up being like for all ages. And it's, if you haven't been to one, it's kind of inconvenient for working people who are out of town, because they're Wednesdays at 11? 11. But it's a really nice alternative for those people, or in addition for those people who maybe don't want to go to the city series that's like so very big out at the end of the Oregon Trail, because that gets a little zooey. And there's lots of room for kids to dance, and there's lots of dancing that happens. It's just pretty freaking adorable. And the Friends are doing a great job of supporting us. So they're really coming through on the funding.
There's usually great postings on Facebook too.
Yeah, Aaron just gets great pictures up there on Facebook, yeah.
And if you haven't been up to the used bookstore that the Friends run, I recommend getting up there.
Oh,
It's always a mistake when I go in, because I walk out with like $15.
They
Just had to buy a
love
new
you.
bookshelf, so.
Yeah, they love people like you.
Yeah,
They're just
so-
doing great in that location. I think there's like just a little bit better visibility, a little bit better parking, and a little bit better foot traffic. And it just adds up to make a big difference, and less space to maintain and less space to pay for. So the library is coming out ahead in that, and it's just great. Everybody's very happy about it.
And as always, thank you, Nick and Cynthia and Ken, for being our liaisons to these other organizations.
I had a question about the Dolly Parton program, and I don't know. I heard that there was about 500 kids that have signed up for it.
Oh, I have no idea what the current number is.
Okay. Well, I was curious.
Do you know, Cynthia?
What's the question?
How many kids have signed up?
I don't know. I think we do know that, but I don't think I know
Right.
it today.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just my mind. Numbers. But I was curious if we're meeting sort of the expectation, is what I was wondering. But
Well, we're kind of in a position of not wanting to exceed expectations on this one, because it could add up really, really quickly.
Correct.
You know, to like $30,000 a year. And so kind of going slowly into this is helpful. Yeah.
Oh, we got trouble.
But we had decided as a foundation and as with the library staff and Mo, that we would do what we call a soft rollout, so that we didn't overwhelm either the budget or staffing until we understood all the details. And I think that's still a really good idea. There's plenty of time to advertise it and push for it, but I think we do need some time, since we're not really clear on the roles that people are playing at this moment, that we don't overwhelm the project before it has a chance to get off the ground in a effectively managed way.
Yep.
So there's time to push it.
thank you.
The next item is future agenda items. All right, right, well, I'm going to add an item here. As you know, Mo's retiring on the 31st, and this will sadly be her last library board meeting. Is there anyone who'd like to say a few words before I do?
Well, all I have to say is Greg is going to have a tough act to follow.
Oh, thanks.
As a former library school director, Dean, I would say that Mo is exactly the sort of person we hope to turn out, and unfortunately seldom did, so you're one of the elite. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Anyone else?
I'm just so impressed with, I've been on the board now for 2 years, and just the progress that continues to be made after the building and that focus, and it's continued on after that big accomplishment, and it hasn't slowed, and it's I'm sure it reflects on both you and your staff. I'm very proud to be part of this board because of you all.
Thanks.
Thank you for all your hard work. It's been so good working with you.
Thank you. You too.
Well, I'm one of the new kids on the block. This is the end of my first year in this service position, and I'm just really impressed about how we had the right person at the right time for all of that development of the building of the new library. And I just think that took an amazing skill set, and I'm so grateful that we had that skill set available to this community during that time.
Thank you.
I have one other thing to say. I was impressed with your staff at the library. How do I put it? They're friendly, but it's not fake. They really want to help the public. They really want to do their job, and it looks like they're happy to be there. And I think that shows that the management has done a good job.
Thanks. That's a huge compliment.
I know I speak for the board, both past and present, when I say thank you for all that you've done. And it has been great to work with you, and we are really, really going to miss you. And we do wish you the best in your retirement, though. So, best of luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And
you can thank my staff for everything.
And anything else? Any unfinished or new business? Since there is no further business, the meeting is adjourned.